Hello, hello. How are you? All good energy? All right. We have an amazing panel, amazing people on stage, and a fantastic topic. So if you're Western, this session is for you. If you're Asian, this session is for you. If you live in this part of the world, the session is for you. If you live in Europe, this session is for you. It's going to be super, super, super interesting. And it's all about Asian speed versus European quality. Are these really two extremes on a line, or are we able to bring those together? If we think about e-commerce, right? If I place an order in Europe for e-commerce, it comes to me in a couple of days, sometimes in a couple of weeks. Here in Asia, it comes on the same day. If I order at midnight with a coupon, I'm guaranteed to have my products at 7 a.m. the next morning, anywhere in the country. When we look at the car industry, it takes in Europe 3 to 6 years to develop a new model. It takes 18 to 24 months in Asia. And so really, the cliche is that in Europe, we take time because we produce good quality. And in Asia, everything is very fast, but the quality is not that good. Is that a true cliche, or are we able to bring those two together? So an amazing panel here today. We've got Frank Schellenberg, who's the founder and chairman of DIGI-TEXX. Hello, hello, Frank. We've got Peter Kompalla, who's the chief representative of AHK here in Vietnam. Hello, Peter. We got Sabine Dietrich, who's the member of the board of Commerzbank in Germany and MMB Energy. And we have Delphine Rousselet, who is the chief executive director of EuroCham here in Vietnam. Hello, Delphine. I'm Roberto, and I'm the chief consulting officer here at Gradion in Vietnam. Thank you. So let's do a quick 30-second session. Just to introduce yourself, what is your role and what is your one superpower? Frank, do you want to start?
It's not about superpower. My name is Frank Schellenberg. I'm the founder and the chairman of the company DIGI-TEXX. DIGI-TEXX provides BPO, business process outsourcing, and digital services, most related to companies who want to outsource some of their business to Vietnam. We are around about 1,200 people and have 3 locations, 2 here in Ho Chi Minh and 1 in the Mekong Delta. We're working 24 hours on 7 days.
And what's your one superpower?
I don't know what a superpower here means, actually, but it's not about superpowers. It's about good work in a high quality with high speed.
All right, thank you. How about you, Peter?
Well, I think the role is best described as a bridge builder. And a bridge builder, and this is also maybe the superpower we as a team have, is building bridges, but actually not so much between Germany and Vietnam, as you might expect, maybe a little more between the two worlds of government and public administration and the business sector. I personally report to the Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy, but we also have a daughter company, a limited, with 50 people, fully on the market, founded 12 years ago, growing on average with 15% annually. So we understand both worlds, and I think this is where we can share a lot. Thank you.
Awesome. Sabine, what's your superpower and what's your role?
Superpowers, I think openness on one hand, and I'm also curious, not in the nosy sense, but I really love to meet people. I'm a good networker, and I'm really great in connecting people who would not think that they fit together. I've got 35 years in the oil and gas industry. I'm an engineer. I'm a travel agent by trade, my first job. I'm glad to be here because my passion is really Vietnam and the people in the country.
Awesome. Delphine.
Thank you. Delphine, French. I'm sorry, I'm the only non-German on stage. Living in Vietnam since 15 years and counting, staying, but only 4 years in EuroCham. For those of you who don't know EuroCham, it's a chamber of chambers. The bilateral chambers, French, Italian, German, etc., are affiliated to EuroCham. My superpower?
Yes, please.
I love diving with sharks, big ones.
Ooh, that's incredible. Diving with sharks. In the water and outside the water. Okay. Discussion for this evening. All right. My superpower is certainly connecting, providing connectivity for business. All right, so we often hear that speed is the new currency here in Asia, and we also hear that discipline is the bedrock of European quality. And so I'd like to ask each of you, starting with Delphine, was there a specific moment when you kind of realized that European Ordnung, or kind of drive for order, versus the Asian speed, and that speed being an obstacle to you, or the order being an obstacle to you?
The speed in Vietnam is actually one of the main reasons why I've been here for almost 15 years, because I find it a lot more exciting, it's my opinion, than my own country. I'm quite sure I'm the only French in the room, so I feel very safe here. You can see here in this country things changing overnight, and it's just not only a word, it does happen. You don't need big, expensive macroeconomics studies to see that. Every day you leave the country for 3 weeks, you come back, there is a new cafe, a new restaurant, a new shop, a new whatever. On our side in EuroCham, we have this business confidence index survey that we conduct every quarter, every 3 months, among our 1,400 members that represent almost the entire European business community operating in Vietnam. The results of the last one that were published 2-3 weeks ago about Q4 25 are absolutely astonishing, because we are back to numbers we had 7 years ago. So meaning that we are back there. 88% of European businesses in Vietnam say that they would recommend Vietnam, and they are optimistic. Their prognostic for the period 2026 to 2030 is extremely positive. 88%, it's incredible. Large companies more than small, but still. Still, the speed brings that optimism, of course. We, Europe, just signed last week the strategic partnership with Vietnam, which is an incredible momentum that we were expecting. Of course, now let's see what it really brings. But again, it's a sign of the speed in Vietnam, because Vietnam is the first country in Southeast Asia to sign with Europe. Still, let's not be too optimistic, right? Positivism comes with truth, I would say, and honesty. The 88% is good, but most of the companies are still struggling. So this is where we still need to work on. Education is not always here for European companies. They don't find the talents they need. Bottlenecks, etc., etc. I was too long, sorry.
No. So park that thought. We'll come back to the BCI report in a minute, because I think it's an extraordinary report, and I want to go into more detail of where this comes from. And obviously, we're talking about 8 to 10% growth in Vietnam this year. So let's get back to that in a moment. Sabine, what was your aha moment?
I worked here, actually, I worked with BP for 25 years, so British Petroleum, we had an upstream business here. And when I started working with BP, we got introduced to the 80-20 rules. And I hope you're familiar with that. For the others, it's 80% of results are achieved with 20% of effort. And the rest of the 20%, you need 80% of effort. So BP was always this company saying, don't go to the extreme, get it right and adjust as you go along afterwards. Yep. And that was very, very early. So to make that personal, end of the 90s, I arrived in Vietnam for building up a petrol station network. And so my job was really to liaise with head office, do the governance pieces, get sign-off for design, etc. And my team was actually supposed to translate that into action, so really physically get petrol stations on the ground. And surprisingly, was when we got approval after 5 months. So it took me 5 months to get head office convinced that what we do is the right thing, blah, blah. And my team needed to needed 4 weeks to turn around a petrol station mock-up for a canopy, the shop, a waiting area, a bike maintenance, and it looked really immaculate. And that was something which absolutely impressed me. And at the end of the 2 years when I was sent back, we had a 20% market share. Okay, so that's incredible.
That is incredible.
Yes.
5 months to get approval, 4 weeks to implement in Asia. That tells really a long story.
Yes, yes. And so just one thing to say, we left Vietnam with the Asian crisis and came back 10 years later. And it was astonishing what we saw, and that's what Delphine said. The change is so rapid here. So when we lived here, we changed money out of the car window on Pasteur Street, okay? We came back, they had ATM machines. You haggled at the airport for a taxi. No, you go into the taxi, they have a meter, that's it. So, that's incredible and unbelievable for European circumstances.
Incredible, yeah. Peter, how about you? What was your aha moment?
Maybe since we have this business example, let me look a little bit more at the administration side, because it's quite exciting in Vietnam. And by the way, hardly anyone knows that Vietnam is globally the country where doing business improved most over the past 20 years. So it has always been a very steady course of improving conditions for businesses. You hardly see that on a day-to-day basis because still we experience administrative burden and things are still slow. But in the long run, it's quite impressive what has happened here in the country. And most impressive is what happened last year for all the guests here in Vietnam, because it was the most radical administrative reform you can imagine. 5 ministries have been merged. From 63 provinces in the country, half were taken out, we only have 34. And there have been 4 administrative levels in this country, and 1 was completely taken out. And we are talking, it sounds easy now, but we are talking about 700 districts over the entire country. There are estimates until 2030 of 700,000 people whose job in public administration will be terminated or they will retire. And then for those of you coming from Germany, take 3 federal states in Germany, put them together, say this will be the new capital, and then you are going to implement it within 2 months. And I think this is an example where you see the difference. It's like we get lots of visitors from Germany. When I tell that to them, it's impossible to imagine. It's impossible to imagine this. But there's a downside to this, and this is very interesting for us to see, because ambition and then simply enforcing it also has a back end where we ask lots of businesses. And of course, it's not easy, there are a lot of challenges you have to fix if you do a radical reform like this. But also the bottom line that businesses say is it's real change, and we really appreciate it, because there will be a massive increase in productivity in this country due to these reforms.
I think it's a fantastic example for exactly our topic, right? Because it was implemented very, very quickly. there was a moment of chaos for months, kind of, everything was a little bit all over the place, and then things fell into place very, very quickly. And now we reap the benefits of that. So it's a perfect example for our topic. Thank you. How about Frank? What was your aha moment?
Now, when talking about speed is actually good.
Absolutely.
From the German side, to talk about speed, I only have the idea from the highways, the Autobahn.
Yeah.
You don't have a speed limit. But on the other hand, from Germany to talk about economics, to set up infrastructure, so speed comes not in my mind. That's different here in Vietnam. When you see the highways, the train, the airport, everything was done really quickly, except the metro, but the other infrastructure. When I go, let's say, on the company level, an example, in the middle of last year, we decided to move in District 6 to another building. So we had 6 months' time, enough. And the guys were preparing all of that. And then after 3 months in the new building, there was a fire. So they said, we cannot move in. They have now a lot of things for security or something. So we had 3 months left. And we quit our former facility on the 1st of January 2026. So as a German, I say, wow, we need a workaround, it's not possible. My excellent staff say, Frank, no problem. We do that in 2.5 months. And I visited the new site. Everything looks well, and they had a supplier for everything, looks nice. And it seemed to be possible to have that ready in 2.5 months, Vietnamese speed. But now come the German side, and they say, do we have a proper contract? Do we have the power in this building? Nobody controls that we are a lot of people. There was more than 100 people moved, and we are going to have 300 people working there. So did you go look in the wall? Do we have the 1.5 millimeter wires, or we need 2.5 or maybe more? Same with the network. Do we have the right cable? We need power. We cannot have unshielded network cable between the power lines. And all this, of course, was not considered. So the speed is one thing, but the quality, what you are doing to have a sustainable place to deliver your business is another one. And I think the mixture is good. So we got it until the 1st of January, and I think we have a proper network invisible from the infrastructure and also the power line. And this goes together when Vietnam, with this drive to do something fast, and a little bit the European, German habit to control all those things what are not visible, it's a good thing together.
Awesome. There you go. It is possible. Thank you. Delphine, you just mentioned the report that the business confidence is the highest it's been over the last 7 years. We know predictions for this year, or targets for this year, are 8 to 10% growth in Vietnam. How is it possible? Where does this optimism come from? And is there a risk or downside to that, where by moving too fast, something drops off?
Well, it comes from many elements that we try to assess in the report. The global situation, tariff, Liberation Day, all this, have certainly helped Vietnam, despite the increase of tariffs as well for Vietnam, because a lot of companies didn't want to buy here and there anymore, etc., etc. Some factories relocated. So at the end of the day, it was positive for Vietnam. I see some of our members who have seen their orders, so they produce, they export, their orders multiplying by 2, which is incredible. That's quite an increase. So this is definitely happening. A risk of downsizing, I don't think. It's more a risk of going probably too fast on a few things. Rules and regulations implemented without having the right, operational. So it's sometimes going too fast on one direction, but things are not ready to be implemented. The VNEID was a clear example. It was supposed to be implemented in nothing super quickly, but the guidelines were not appropriate for foreigners, so that was a very complicated moment for foreign businesses. You can see infrastructure sometimes going too fast. An airport is about to emerge soon, not in the middle of nowhere, but with no roads. The appropriate infrastructure to go there and come from the airport are not yet ready. The third terminal, Terminal 3 in Tanzania, was open before it was actually really, really finished. So the first big rain was a massive catastrophe. So sometimes going fast is good, but it should be associated with a bit more planning and implementing vision. Question?
Yep, awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much, Delphine. Peter, when we spoke earlier, you mentioned that German firms have sometimes dozens of projects in the pipeline, but somehow they struggle to pull the trigger and move forward. Why do you think that is, and what would be your advice to kind of get these companies off the ground?
Yeah, that's a fairly complex question because you also have to...
Let's make it simple.
Yeah. I try to make it simple. Let me just wrap it with you are aware of the geopolitical situation we are in. And then for the business model Germany has, I think lots of industries and lots of companies in Germany have challenges ahead. But then again, we think that Vietnam is part of the solution for exactly these challenges, because it's first a growth market, by the way, growth champion in Asia Pacific. And the second thing is, for a country like Germany, Vietnam is the best partner for competitive supply chain. So we promote it a lot, and yes, the question would be for all, we receive around still 700 to 800 inquiries from German companies every year. So we help them to navigate the opportunities in the Vietnamese market. But we see the final decision is not taken. And then it is in Germany, where's the automotive industry heading? What are customers doing? This is one part of the story. But there's also another part of the story, and I think Sabine has a lot to share here. It's difference in culture. Things are moving very fast here. That makes things less predictable. And in Germany, that creates fear, because it gets more difficult to manage risks. And I think this is the cultural strength people have here. The culture here is no fear. Doing
Go for it.
And then solving it.
Yeah.
And I think there are two very big differences. And I think what we should do is try to find a good compromise, get it closer together. A little less fear and more trust on the German side, maybe a little more openness for expertise and quality on the Vietnamese side,
Okay.
and you would get to a next level.
The German companies going for it, maybe starting small, and Vietnamese companies coming together with European companies to use the expertise to build up the country. Okay.
Especially, I mean, that's another story we can dig deeper if we still have time. The big opportunity, of course, is the big infrastructure projects you currently have in the country, with railway, airports, and so on. And I think here there are a few more cultural differences also in doing business, which we need to overcome. But you know, I think there are opportunities.
Interesting, absolutely. Frank, You've built and scaled up a major tech business here in Vietnam. And so in your journey of doing that, where did you go for Asian speed? And where did you put your German foot down and said, no, this is turning into chaos and we need to do it the proper way?
Yeah, one example was this building, for instance, this is also in our daily business. Customer, not only from Germany, want speed. When a customer decides to have this service provider, he wants it soon as possible with the highest quality. Now our slogan is German quality made in Vietnam. So that is the quality, not the speed. So with the speed, we have struggle sometimes. So one is we are available really in a short time, but we don't sufficient knows what the customer wants with this data. We are data supplier. And here is always necessary to getting this European business culture also to the Vietnamese leadership, the Vietnamese team leader, project manager, to understand what happens with the product or our service and the data afterwards. So to understand that, we grow up in these countries, so we know what it means. But in Vietnamese, often is you order something and you get something and it could not be complete or in the time, or the Grab driver carry your TV in your apartment and damage it a little bit. So it is necessary here really training. And unfortunately, Vietnam has no vocational training. So you have study, you're a specialist in something, or you left the school and doing. So this gap in the middle is actually necessary to make the service level okay, be in quality, be in speed. The delivery is seamless, come from Germany, what we want to pretend. And that is the challenge. And that is, someone must to explain, and you have to bring that in a training to the people. It's the same way you have to understand the Vietnamese culture, where it's a little bit different sometimes. You have something, if you're heavier, that the worse is better. This is our job to bring this efficiency and this thinking into the company, into the employees.
Very interesting. So training may help bridge that gap between quality and speed.
And say also, this is not, you don't have to study, only that your parents pay money and want a bachelor back. So knowledge is the most important, and that's what you do.
Indeed, indeed. So we spoke earlier about different cultures and kind of how to work together. Sabine, in Europe, obviously, we plan for a long time to ensure that perfect quality. And in Asia, we iterate and iterate and iterate to get to that quality. Is it possible to combine these two ideas? How do you see that working out? And what do you see as a success in a world that moves ever so faster and faster and faster?
Obviously, yes. I'm a firm believer that the faster the things hit the ground in the market, the better. So this is the first thing, and that's what Frank is talking about as well. I think in general, yes, you need to understand each other's culture, because then you can actually get the best out of both. And I'm not convinced that quality at 100% is for everything required. You need to be able to manage risk, and then you can actually determine by which level you think the quality is right, and then you iterate. But let me just go back to British Petroleum, because they started early in the 1990s to run a project which is called Gerd Hofstedter's 6 cultural dimensions, and I run through that, and we talked about that because it's fascinating. So what they do is he differentiates cultural preferences across 76 countries, And they are useful if you manage teams with a different heritage. So I just picked 3 ones I want to look at and just give you a glimpse of what they mean. So firstly, overall, Germany and Vietnam have one thing in common, which is Vietnamese expect seniority, and they respect experience, and Germans value competence. So if you bring that together, you're a great team. Then when you look into something called long-term orientation, Vietnam is being definitely more adaptable than the Germans. Let's put that, and the Germans, they want to plan super carefully, and they want to check everything to 100% and be precise, okay, no deviation. The next one is uncertainty avoidance, which falls a little bit into the same category.
Yep.
Vietnam is really comfortable with uncertainty, and quick changes. Oh God, Germany likes clear rules and structure. And then the last one is masculinity, which is a category I don't like. What it means is the competition versus cooperation. And Vietnam really is a country of balance, relationship building, and Vietnam is a country of getting things done. Yeah?
Yeah.
And you can see that because in BP we had always...
Germany is a place of getting things done. Germany is a place of getting things done.
Yes,
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah.
When I worked in London, the meetings we started was you meet at the coffee machine, you talk, and then you go in the room, and then you stop your private talk because you know something about the other person, and then you do business. In Germany, you meet in the room. You shake hands, you sit down, you do business. You cannot do that in Vietnam. Absolutely not possible. And if I have time, I would share one thing which I shared with you. Okay, I do that very quickly. I was the first female executive for an oil company when I started here. My task was petrol stations, so I went out and I met with all the CEOs of the local oil businesses. Surprisingly, the majority was female. And so I went into the first meeting, and the subsequent meeting with the other CEOs were a copy of that, and they started questioning me about, okay, where are you from? How old are you? Are you married? How many children do you have? And so on and so forth. And I answered everything until we came to the question of children, and I said, I don't have children. And I thought this would close out the conversation. No way. The next question was, why not? So I sat there and I thought, what do I tell them? And so I said, I cannot get children, and I thought it gets me out of the way. And then I got so much emphasis and sympathy back for answering that question honestly. And I tell you, from that day onwards, I had all doors open, and everyone wanted to do business with me, and that was why we had the 22% market share. So give it a try, because it's worthwhile, and give the people credit for trust.
That's an incredible story. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing this. It's really about opening yourself up and building trust that way. And a lot of what you were saying, you see that every day on the roads here, right? The traffic obviously works very differently from Europe. Yeah. I'd like to hand over to you and open the floor for questions.
Hello, my name is Billy. I'm from the Canva.com. I have a question for you, speaker. Actually, can you tell us about more macroeconomics and the consumer environment to affect the European and Asia foreign company play in Vietnam? Yeah, I want to add the macroeconomic about the policy and the consumer environment to affect the European and Asia foreign company we are playing investment in Vietnam? Yeah.
How the economic situation in Vietnam is impacting foreign companies here?
Yeah, then the macroeconomic and then consumer environment.
Okay. Anybody would like to take that? How does the macroeconomic situation in Vietnam and consumer confidence impact the foreign companies that are active here?
It's very diverse, and I'm not trying to avoid your question, but it's actually very diverse because it depends on sectors. Fast-moving consumer goods are apparently doing quite well. I would not disclose big secrets if I tell you that, for example, L'Oréal is doing an e-commerce in Vietnam that is unbelievable. These kind of businesses are doing well. Others are struggling more because if we talk about European products, okay, cars, we know that both German cars, French cars, etc., are struggling because of the import not easy, despite the Vietnam Free Trade Agreement that is not fully implemented yet. So, and we can go on sector by sector, but it's really diverse. Or another difficulty sometimes for the headquarters in Europe is to understand that not every year their branches in Vietnam can come with a two-figure growth in sales. And that's actually a difficulty they almost all fight. Because some years in Vietnam, they made 20-something, 30-something, 40-something growth in sales. And suddenly when they drop to 15, 10, it seems bad. But actually, if they compare with what they do in Europe, it's fantastic. So the question is very broad. We could go on, but sector by sector, I would say.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Delphine. Any other questions? Any other questions about Asian speed and German quality? Faster.
Thank you. Yeah, first of all, thanks a lot for everything that you shared. I thought it's very interesting how vivid and lively your personal experiences are and how you implemented that in your context. I would think, I would wonder what are some very practical steps or practical considerations for a German business to really utilize that huge potential in Vietnam of that speed that you described, and yet bring the German, the regulatory frameworks as much as possible into place to be successful for that business to thrive. So yeah, what are some very practical nuances if I would enter the market as a German business that you would think, I wish I would have known that sooner, that I should consider?
Who wants to take that? Very practical advice. How do we combine?
I will maybe start with one thing we see with the companies being present here is maybe the most important thing to start with. And just to give you an overview, we have around 600 German companies invested in Vietnam, doing very well, also very good feedback we get in surveys. But more interestingly, hardly anyone knows, we have around 4,000 companies. They are not invested here, but they are having Vietnamese partners in the country, which really create a lot of business for them. And I think to start with, this would be our main advice. a very good partner in the market. And to go further, how to find a very good partner is once again a big cultural difference. We call it here that there's something like a circle of trust. And you need to understand the market structure in terms of what is the circle of trust in your market structure. And then you need an intermediary who's giving you access into this circle of trust. This is the challenging thing in the beginning, but if you manage to get there, then things get very successful. Thanks.
I think that's very wise advice, yes. Delphine, you want to add to that?
I just want to add something. For newcomers, I completely agree, but I would also give recommendations for those who are here already. Because you have, most of the companies, European companies investing here, operating, have at least 1 or 2 or 3 expats. Changing that expat is actually a risk. Every time you change an expat, there is a period of time when that person will be lost in translation. And not because he or she doesn't speak Vietnamese, because it's completely different cultures, and we need time to understand the culture. So what's the name of those companies? Relocation companies. That's an example. Coaches, intercultural coaches, or whatever name you put on it, but give them support to your expats. I've seen expats arriving to drive big MNCs, really. Full family, kids at school, so massive investment for the company, for the headquarters. And after 6 months, either the expat, either the partner leaves, cannot anymore, doesn't understand the country, why people laugh when I'm angry at them, because they are uncomfortable. But if you don't get that, as a European, you are not happy with someone and he starts laughing, it's the worst that you can do to a European. The day you understand that, everything changes. It's just a tiny example, but interculturality is really massive challenge.
Sabine, thank you.
I think what we did in BP was my job when I arrived here. It was a 3-year contract. At the end of the 3 years, I had to have a trained local Vietnamese taking over my job. And I think that's what companies should really start doing. And the rest of the things have to be done back in Europe. You know, start having a proper strategy and do the strategic pieces in Europe and let the people work on the ground their job. You know, and there's a couple of more things I have, like, get more customer-centric, embrace ambiguity, and I think I've got another couple here. Start ecosystem thinking, all that kind of stuff, you know. You need to start in Europe, and then you actually deploy that in here with local people.
Okay, I think we're out of time. I'd like to do 2 super quick lightning rounds with 1 sentence each. First one, imagine a CEO in Europe who wants his or her company to become faster. What's your 1 sentence advice to help her or him to become faster as an organization in Europe?
It depends on a little bit of service or production, or even you want to say something here, but I would say, okay, I would invite him like Gradion did, night event, and would show we can take your pain points for costs, but more and more for availability on labor market, what is in Europe now a big problem to find the right people. And I would say, okay, we can do that for you here. That will not be your problem anymore.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Frank. Peter?
I think the one thing you can learn here is to start doing things and then fixing the challenges on the way. That's maybe.
Yeah, awesome. Very good.
I think the biggest risk for European CEOs is that they move at European speed in an Asian-paced world. And so I would say, don't think the world is moving at your pace.
Important to recognize, yeah. Delphine?
Talk less, do more.
That phrase is borrowed from many
Not
people.
mine for sure, but applies well.
And recent politics in the country that we're in. Absolutely, yes. And so the last lightning round for European companies that want to come here and who are scared that the Asian speed will break and compromise their European quality. One word of advice?
Jump into it. Be brave.
Be brave, all right. Frank?
Nobody is afraid about speed. I would say you have the wrong job.
Very important point, yes.
No fear.
No fear.
There, try it.
Sorry?
There, try it.
Dare and try it. Brilliant. Very strong words for running businesses here in Vietnam, as well as how to become fast again in Europe. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the session. The panel will still be here, and so feel free to read out to them and ask them anything after the panel. Thank you very much for being part of this, and have a fantastic remaining